Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Back.
I know, after a brief hiatus, because we've both been busy bees, to episode 6.
We would like to formally apologise for the lack of episodes over the last couple of weeks.
You know, a few people have been in touch to inform us that there have been no episodes. We are aware, and we apologise.
So, how have things been for you?
Things have been busy. I think for both of us. I started a new job in a new gym.
Mm-hmm.
You've changed coaches.
Yep, I've been busy setting up a couple of new clients as well, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm. I've had a few new onboardees as well. Been at a couple of events.
We have. So we went to a lesbian pizza party a few weeks ago, which was fun.
Yes. Many carbs were consumed. Many pool games were lost at the last minute, even though I set that up perfectly. What else we went up to? We went to the Pride Outside events.
We did.
Met a lot of other kind of queer people from loads of different industries and got to hear their takes on life at the moment, which kind of segues quite nicely into what we'd like to talk about today. Although this is our first one back after a little break, it is quite a serious and important topic.
It is, and to be honest, I feel like it is probably partly what has contributed to our lack of putting out any podcast episodes over the last couple of weeks. I know that it's certainly one that's been laying heavy on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is something that it is really worth addressing, just regarding the current political climate at the moment when it comes to the LGBT community and more specifically the trans community.
Yep. So I suppose for our listeners that maybe aren't aware or are less aware, shall we give a little overview of what that looks like at the minute?
Yes. So I just wanted to make sure that I was getting my facts right before I spoke on this, because there are a lot of ins and outs of it and there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment over what this actually means. But there was a Supreme Court ruling that was made a couple of weeks ago in the context of the Equality Act 2010, and they have basically ruled that the legal definition of a woman is someone born into a female body. So with that in mind, the ruling clarifies that transgender women who were assigned male at birth but identify as women are pretty much not protected by the Act in certain spaces, more specifically single-sex spaces, so things like bathrooms, changing rooms, and so on and so forth. But it has now started to kind of bleed out into other areas as well, including like sports, which is something that we are going to touch on a little bit more. I feel as if there's just so much to unpack when it comes to this. And I want to start by saying, in my humble opinion, this is a red herring for everything else that is going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's a coincidence that we saw in the recent elections down south that the Reform Party have picked up more seats. There is definitely an agenda that is being pushed at the moment, which is using the trans community as scapegoats.
I would agree. There have been obviously a couple of things circling the interweb is we're kind of looking at the wrong 1%.
Absolutely.
Like in terms of the size of the community as a whole, if you gathered every trans person in the world, you'd probably be highly unlikely if you walked down a random street to bump into a trans person. They are so few and far between, they make up less than 1%.
And this is the thing as well, it's like I've had to intentionally reduce the amount of time that I spend. Not that I'm really much of a Facebook user anyway, but bigots love Facebook.
Love Facebook.
Bigots love Facebook. So one of the recurring comments that I keep
bigots love Facebook.
One of the recurring comments that I keep seeing pop up at the moment refers to men in dresses using women's bathrooms. Yeah. Now, let's be honest, how many of us have, even with 100% certainty, how many of us have bumped into a trans person in the bathroom?
How many of us have bumped into a trans person anywhere?
Exactly.
And let's be real here. No one enjoys a trip to a public toilet.
Mm-hmm.
No one. this is not in any way a dig at the cleaners of the world. I mean, you do a grand job. I mean, you're unsung heroes. But, like, public toilets aren't necessarily a space I enjoy spending time.
No.
So why on earth would someone choose a public toilet to launch a sinister undertone to anything? And there's obviously been quite a lot of statements made about, generally speaking, if someone is going to assault someone else, they don't, in this day and age, genuinely put a disguise on to do that.
No.
So I think that's quite insulting. There's also, you mentioned, remember we were talking about it the other day, and they were talking about the likelihood of there being statistics with members of the trans community with like a criminal conviction.
Yep, so there also seems to be this misinformation being spread about the statistics of trans people in prisons that have committed sexual assault compared to like the general population or like the cis population within prisons. However, let's also keep in mind that trans people make up less than 1% of the population. Therefore, if 50% of trans people, for example, I'm just pulling statistics out my ass, right?
My ass.
But for example, if 50% of trans people in a prison had committed sexual assault compared to like 12% of cis men within the prison, yes, that's going to sound like a higher percentage, but there are going to be a much smaller population of trans people within that prison, so
like you probably imagine that if you put 12% and 50% in an actual number of individuals, they're probably less. Their 50% probably makes up less than the 12%.
Absolutely.
Or something of that in that ilk.
So just to delve into the Act a little bit further as well, with them basically saying that the legal definition of a woman is someone born in a female body, and then also the legal definition of a man, which they didn't actually go into as far as I'm aware. They specifically singled out women.
Yeah, there's not been much chat about men.
But basically what they're saying is like you need to use the toilet that you were of the sex that you were assigned at birth. Now, let's also reflect on the fact that there are people or are further along in their transition and they are able to pass as the gender that they now present as. So if you want a trans man who was born female using the women's bathrooms, what's to say that...
Be prepared for a big burly guy to walk
in. What's to say that a cis man wouldn't just go in there pretending to be a trans man in order to carry out an assault?
It's almost the exact same argument that people are trying to make now to use the scapegoats, going, oh, they'll disguise themselves in dresses.
Yep.
But if you're arguing that, then it's just like you're saying, like you could go in as a cis man and go...
It is literally a straw man argument.
Which is, I seen something on Instagram yesterday. I follow this guy. He is he's a trans man and a coach, I think somewhere in Germany, but he is jacked. Like, looks from his pictures to be really tall, big beard, giant muscles. Has obviously transitioned quite a while ago because he seems very established.
Mm-hmm.
And like to gain muscles in any case, but obviously he's like, if he'd put on his own post on Instagram, he was like, so you're telling me I have to go into a women's bathroom? It was a picture of him flexing, like topless in the mirror and the muscles on him, and like, I guarantee you, if he walked into a women's bathroom, they'd be running out going, there's a man in. This is the kind of predicament they're putting people in, but they're also putting people in a predicament where they're in the right toilet for them, regardless.
Yeah, this is what I was just thinking.
What point they're at their transition journey, or even cis people, like, I've been stopped in toilets. Yep. People are going to start pointing fingers at anyone that they don't think belongs in the toilet or should be in the other. It's going to get absolutely... It already is ridiculous, but it's going to get crazy.
It is completely unworkable because not only does it impact trans people, but it also impacts gender non-conforming people. It impacts women who present more masculine. It impacts women who maybe have like PCOS or other hormonal conditions that mean that they do have slightly more masculine features. It impacts intersex people because if we're talking about sex as well, like, hello, intersex people exist.
Yep. Where do they fall in the Act? I think in terms of, because we touched on it at the start of the podcast as well, and in terms of the world of sports,
Mm-hmm.
it's been parroted about, oh, but cis women will get injured or it'll undo all their hard work to be seen in the sporting world. Newsflash, women traditionally aren't seen in the sporting world. All you need to do is look in any grassroots club or changing room and see the resources available to the women's team and the resources available to the men's team. I mean, I was listening to a podcast about the England women's rugby team the other day, and you know they'd never got to use, up until recently, the main changing rooms at Twickenham, which is England's national stadium. They'd always used one of the other changing rooms. If you look at Scotland, our women's team don't play in Murrayfield, they play in the Hive, which is a smaller pitch next door. But no. It's the trans people that have taken it away. I'm like, no. They've taken nothing away. Women's sports traditionally has had less.
Yeah.
And see, to be quite honest with you, the argument about injury, now I'm just speaking from personal experience here, but I don't think, I'm going to use a pun, the argument about injury, these idiots have a leg to stand on, because see, if you're playing a sport, so obviously I'm making it about rugby here, which is a bit more physical. If you're going to get injured, you're going to get injured. Like, the tackle I had that ruptured my ligament was actually from a very, very small woman. She was small and she was fast. And this argument that trans women would be able to come at it with this greater degree of strength, I think is nonsense. Like, you played a contact sport, like, that's the rules of the jungle, so to speak. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I personally, speaking here as someone that's been through an ACL reconstruction, I wouldn't have a problem at all with the trans women being on my team, or if I arrived at a pitch one day and seen there was a trans woman on the opposition. As far as I'm concerned, she's a member of the team. No ifs, no buts, no coconuts.
Do you know what's just triggered me as well? I just remembered. So there was this. I wish I could remember her name now. Like, I wish I could like plug her right here, because
Do you? I mean,
I wish I could plug her Instagram handle right here, because like
this one's going to go in the highlight reels.
I can't for the life of me remember what her name is, but she's an incredible athlete in the amateur bodybuilding world. She's from down south, and she competed a couple of years ago. She competed in trained figure, which, if you know anything about bodybuilding or if you don't, trained figure is basically like the most muscular women's category within like one of the bigger bodybuilding federations in the UK, PCA. So basically it goes toned figure, athletic figure, and then trained figure. And then once you get to a point where you're pushing a certain size, then you'd basically be considered women's physique, which is like fucking mass monsters, like really incredible athletes, but holy shit, like they have some amount of muscle on them. And this lady, she competed in trained figure, and I believe that she has now, I used to follow her on my old previous Instagram account, but I believe she has now gone on and started training to be a women's physique competitor. But she, and this is obviously due to like steroids and stuff as well, but like she had quite like masculine features, so like a very strong jaw. Like, as I say, her physique was insanely like impressive. She did really well. Like won her category when she competed and everything. But there was a video of her. In fact, there were a number of videos that were circulating online of her like on stage doing her routine and stuff. And there were some awful comments in there. People were calling her trans. Like, I don't really know what they were trying to achieve there, but like they were basically trying to get her like banned from bodybuilding, because they were like, oh, like a trans man shouldn't be competing as a woman and all that. Like, I don't know if they were suggesting that she was a man or if she was transitioning to male, but either way it was very problematic.
Yeah.
And she didn't even identify as such. Like, she literally identified as a woman, like was born like assigned female at birth. And it's like you can't win. You literally cannot win against transphobes.
You can't. They'll twist the argument back and forward.
Yep.
Because they will generate a climate of fear towards people who've fully transitioned, but they will also generate a climate of fear if those individuals that have transitioned then have to resort to going back into, say, the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom to the sex they were assigned at birth. They'll be the first ones parroting, "You can't be in here." It's a really hollow attempt at just...
I mean, I've been under the same scrutiny myself in the past as well. Like, there was a time where I literally put money behind a paid ad on Facebook to advertise my coaching, and Facebook pushed it out to the wrong audience, and all these men, they were all men and people that had inanimate objects in their profile pictures, all these men started dogpiling onto the comments, like calling me awful things, like calling me a man, telling me I looked emaciated. It was awful. Like, at that point, I genuinely reconsidered whether I actually wanted to put myself out there, because I was like, number one, like, why are these things being thrown around as an insult? But like, two, it's just Facebook. Facebook is full of absolute reprobates. Like, who has the time to be like sitting commenting nasty, spiteful things about people?
Well, we'd had that when we were looking at the comments from the protests outside.
Oh God.
I always get the word.
EHRC.
The EHRC.
So we attended a rally last Friday, and we can talk a bit more about kind of things you can do to get involved if you are an ally, if you want to kind of support in any way you can with everything that's going on at the moment. But yeah, we were at a protest last Friday.
Yep. And on the street, the atmosphere was like one of kind of overwhelming support and love. And it was enormously respectful. I mean, there was space left on all the walkways if people wanted to get past. There was space left at all the doorways, so there wasn't any disruption at any businesses. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, people were very emotional and quite angry and upset when they were up speaking, but it was all very well organised, I would say. Like, there wasn't a squish. At no point did you think, oh, this is... Well, but when all the pictures, because obviously there's quite a lot of press there, a few cameras were shoved in face. I mean, got some good angles, but the comments on a lot of these things were quite strange. I mean, I, for one, having grown up with OCD, pride myself on my standards of personal hygiene, but the overwhelming theme of the comments was that everyone there hadn't had a shower.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Like, okay.
There were comments about, like, all these people are unemployed, like, why have they not jobs? Not good. First of all, obviously, we are self-employed.
Yeah.
But the protest was held at lunchtime. It was held between 12 and 2, and I initially questioned why it was that early in the day. I kind of forget that most people have, like, lunch a 9 to 5, a lunch hour, or like they've got uni. Well.
Yeah. So a lot of people
probably on flexi time and stuff.
Flexi, finish early on a Friday. I myself, like, we had a lot of stuff going on with like family things over the weekend. I swapped a shift. I started at 5:30 in the morning to make sure I was on time for this protest. So tell me now, who's not working and who doesn't care?
Literally. And surely if your human rights are being infringed upon, like,
you get out of bed.
You get out of bed and you fight that cause.
You get up at 4:30 and you get to work and you get out of work on time. Because it's human rights.
I just want to know who's got the free time to be posting a hate on Facebook instead of getting on with their lives and doing their job.
Do you know what? It's like that way they always say, like, people that hurl insults, there's normally an element of, I say truth, not at the person it lands on, but they've had to think that somewhere, so I challenged them this.
Oh, well.
Is the reason they think we're all unshowered is because they themselves were probably sat on their couch, unshowered themselves when they posted it.
We're all just projecting at the end of the day, aren't we? So...
I mean, do you know who's smelly? Transphobes.
I think, like, one of the things that's been, like, getting to me is that at the events and stuff that we have been to recently, like, between we went to a rally a couple of days after the initial announcement was made as well, because basically, like, the second that they made the first announcement, I was like, what can we do right now to take action? How can we show support? Like, how can we get involved? Because
you've been very switched on.
I am, like, not the kind of person to just sit back and watch people's rights get trampled on. And yeah, obviously we've tried to get involved in any way we can, and whichever environments we've been in, like, whether it's been at rallies, we were at a queer networking event just last week. We were at like another, I call it a networking event, but it's more of like a socialising. Like, so we went to Sapphic Socials. Shout out Sapphic Socials. If you don't follow them on Instagram, go give them a follow just now. They arrange like multiple events a month for queer Sapphic women. Trans women are welcome. Non-binary people who love women are welcome. And we'll hopefully have something in the works with them soon as well. But I won't give too much more away at the moment. But what I've noticed at these events is just like how overwhelming like the sense of solidarity is, and like even though it is really harrowing times, it's really uncertain times, there's just been so much like queer joy. I don't know how else to explain it other than queer joy. There's been singing, there's been cheering, like you go along, like you get chatting to people, everyone's been really friendly and just like really supportive, and you just feel this sense of like solidarity. And I think it's really important to remember that, like when there is so much hatred like in online spaces and like in the news and stuff, I feel like the atmosphere at these events has been one that like leaves me feeling hopeful walking away from it.
I think when you look at the community in and of itself, anytime, and that doesn't take away from the suffering that's been caused over the years, but anytime, I'm trying to be careful what I say here so it doesn't sound like I'm picking a fight, but anytime the LGBTQ plus community has been crossed, they've always won. And I think that's because this is a community grounded in love and mutual respect. Which just goes to show like there isn't a tactic you can use to outsmart that. I mean, it's the most powerful force in the world. We've all always been here. There'll be more of us in the years to come, and there'll been those of us, like, I sometimes wonder my like family tree, I'm like, there must be another one. Like, and I think as well, because there's so much like intersectionality between and within, both like if you look at within the trans community, within the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, there's so much diversity in there. And if like we can all get along with one another being so diverse, with this small exemption of like obviously the radical feminists and the LGB.
Do you know, like, I honestly, there is a part of me that strongly believes that people who are part of this LGB that have branched off and decided that like trans people have nothing to do with like the lesbian, gay, bisexual community, they're probably closeted trans people, like, let's either that or they find themselves attracted to trans people and they can't stand it, so instead they project that hate.
They're like, I'm so attracted but I can't stand it, so I'll resort to hate, which is never excusable, because you know that we used to hear people saying it was always the like the little boys pull little girls' pigtails because they fancy them type thing. Like, there's never an excuse. See, if you think like you see someone in someone that you admire, just tell them that. Don't be a knob.
Another thing that I just want to have a rant about as well is like, what the fuck even is a woman anyway? Like, what is a woman? Because
Shania Twain would apparently say that's doing the rounds. If you go when Shania Twain says go, you're a woman. So you know, you were talking about gender being social. Like, I remember, and I'm not throwing shade at anyone. So like I remember when I was very small, I liked playing with cars because they had wheels. I remember actually doing this at uni, and there was apparently a study done, and they basically worked out, so they gave kids for talking the sex they were born, male or female. I think it was something to do with the pram, and they found from this study that the only reason the little girls were playing with the pram is because it had wheels on it, because it moved. It wasn't because they were like, oh, I will have a baby and the baby will go in the pram. It was, there's wheels on this and it moves. How cool is that? And that's why I had a pram as a child, but I liked the fact I could put stuff in it. And very stuff maybe. I really liked playing with cars, and I remember my mum always used to say, she's like, you never liked playing with, like, I do remember this as a child. I had a little toy iron. I dare say I played with it once or twice, but I liked playing with my cars. And there was this debate in our family. They're like, oh, we knew you were gay from the get-go. I mean, look at the toys you played with. And I was like, newsflash, I hate ironing as an adult. Like, I wanted to play with cars because I knew I wanted to drive one when I grew up. I didn't want to play with an iron going, oh, I can't wait to stay inside all day and watch someone else go out and drive the car for me. That's what childhood me thought.
Well, I referenced this. I referenced this, and I think it was the second episode that we put out. But I've got this photo of me, like I must have been about 3 years old because it was around the time that I cut all my hair off. I'm wearing Thomas the Tank jammies. I've got really short hair, probably not far off the same haircut I've got now. It's pretty much the same haircut now.
Do you want me to get you some Thomas the Tank? We should recreate that picture.
Do you know what's really funny though? So see in that picture, there is like a toy behind, because it's Christmas morning. There's a toy behind me, and I'm sure it is something to do with like cleaning. Like it's a proper gendered toy. And I'm like, this is literally what is being instilled into kids, like from the age of like 2 or 3 is girls are domesticated.
Yeah, you iron. I remember having a little plastic kitchen. Don't get me wrong, hours of endless fun. But I dare say, if me and my sister were twins, were boys, would we have got a kitchen, or would we have got, you know, like you can get those wee fake woodworking benches?
Like,
don't get me wrong, I had like one of those cars you walk about in. I loved that. My sister's was called Brum, and mine was called Thomas, as in Thomas the Tank Engine.
And Brum the car.
And Brum the car. But there was
I wonder if Brum was based in Birmingham.
Maybe.
Can you look that up?
Brum. Where was Brum?
Obviously, like Brum's a car noise, but now I want to know if it was also like a play on.
Where is Brum from? Brum is a fictional character from the British children's Birmingham.
Oh, set in Birmingham.
Because he's a Brummie.
It all makes sense now. See, this morning actually, so I was watching. I'm pretty sure it was on this morning.
Oh, Brum, sorry, I've gone down the rabbit hole. Brum is a contraction of brummagem, which is a common colloquial name for Birmingham City.
Interesting.
Now you know. Sorry, carry on.
I was watching a video on Facebook this morning. I say I'm trying to cut down my Facebook time just now because I just get angry, but also that popped up because there's a lot of like LGBTQ plus community content coming up on my newsfeed at the moment. Like the algorithm is just like, yes, you are one of us.
One of us.
But there was this lady that was recently on this morning, and she was on being interviewed about her child, who basically her and the child's father have decided to raise the baby as non-binary, and they've basically said, when I think the baby's maybe like 4 years old or something just now, and they've said when I'm calling it a baby, the kid is like 4 years old now, and they have said that once the kid is old enough to decide their gender, then they can, but for now they're just raising it like gender neutral. And see the way that like the lady was so like well composed on the interview. She kept very calm, and like I found it really interesting she had to say, and I was like, do you know, I can really get behind this because I can understand where she's coming from. Like she was really well articulated. There wasn't any, like, even when she was asked questions about it, like she was able to kind of like discuss her rationale and everything. Obviously, like in terms of like the sex, they're like, yes, like we're happy to disclose the kid's sex if we need to for things like like their passport or GP's doctor visits and things like that. But generally speaking, if we have to like fill out any forms or whatever and it asks gender and the options are like male, female, then we'll typically phone the place up and explain to them like that's their sex but you're asking for their gender, then there's no option for like non-binary. And usually places are quite accepting and they're like, oh yeah, that was an oversight. And it actually has just had me thinking as well, like I'm pretty sure I need to amend this, but like I don't know if it's like my inquiry form, my onboarding form or something. I have gender and then I've put male, female, and I'm like, but those are sexes, not genders. So I need to have a look at that. Going off on a tangent.
Or you could just put it as a free text box.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good idea actually. Coming up with all the ideas today. But I was reading through the comments, and this is what I need to avoid doing because I get so angry reading comment sections. But it was just all these people who have clearly like never read a paper on gender theory in their lives, have never read a paper on genetics, because that's a whole thing as well, by the way, and this isn't something that I claim to know anything about, but this kind of content also keeps appearing on my algorithm at the moment. And it's like geneticists and like people that work with like chromosomes and stuff who have gone away and done like 3 degrees, and they're like, even we couldn't tell you like what a biological male or female is, because there's so many different variations. So apparently intersex people are just as common as redheads. That you could go your entire life not knowing that you're intersex, because there are so many different like
haven't you told me the redhead fact before?
Because I only found it out like yesterday or something.
I would have expected a text immediately as a redhead.
Intersex people are just as common as redheads. And where do they fit into this gender binary or this sex binary?
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Up the redheads and the intersex people. It's like not all redheads are intersex, and it's like not all fingers are thumbs, but all thumbs are fingers. I don't know if I've said that right. That is, I would say, my fact of, not even the day, I would say that's fact of the week. But it just goes to show you like how society isn't built to accommodate that at all, because you never hear of it.
But it's also how people will just pick things up and run with them. So another thing that's been coming up is everyone's throwing around this phrase biological sex now, as if like they know what biological sex means, when even fucking scientists who have done 3 degrees can't really tell you what biological sex is.
Mm-hmm. Like, because they're probably saying something like, oh, it's the presence of a penis or testicles or a vagina, but I'm like, see if you're intersex and most of those organs are internal, how would you ever know?
We could even go a step further than argue, like, again, like coming back to, I think this circles back to what I was saying before, like, what is a woman? Because all of these like TERFs are basically saying, oh yeah, but I have a womb, and a trans woman will never know what it's like to carry a child. Well, what about women who have had their wombs removed, hysterectomies? What about women who are infertile, who have maybe things like PCOS or endometriosis, which have actually prevented them from conceiving? And then if we talk about like childbearing and stuff as well, what about women that decide to get surrogates because they don't want to carry a child? Are they then not women?
Like, so
what about women that don't want to have children? I don't want to be reduced to my
sexual organs. Like, because it's like you're saying, something happened the other day and I was really miffed. And what was it? Can't remember, but we've spoke about it before. I think we spoke about it very early on when we started talking, and it was like, when it comes to healthcare, women's healthcare is largely centred around your ability to have a child.
Yep.
So you as an individual are overlooked, and it's about this hypothetical baby that you may or may not be carrying. I know exactly what it was. So, sorry, Lauren. My sister had an operation a couple of days ago to remove kidney stones, and a couple of things went on that we as a family aren't happy about in terms of the length of time she was left without pain relief. But do you know the amount of times they delayed things, not intentionally, they weren't dragging their heels to ask her if she was pregnant? Now, I know they do stages at every step of the way to make sure that like they've got everything right, but before they put her in any scan or did any test, she had to tell at least 5 different people she was not pregnant before they went ahead. Surely all she'd need to do was say it once and it'd be in her notes.
Were you not saying something similar happened to you when you went for a scan?
Yeah, as a teenager, I went for a scan, and as a closeted teenage lesbian, I remember saying,
I feel like that should be like a band name.
Closeted teenage lesbian. We'll go on tour soon.
Closeted teenage lesbian.
My first album is coming out soon. But I remember, it's yet another knee story. I've always had tricky knees, but I was going for an MRI on my knees. So I would be in this tube from the waist down, which obviously contained within are my sex organs. And the guy asked me, when we were doing the, like, have you got any, like, metal or whatever in you? He went, is there a chance you might be pregnant? And I don't even remember laughing. I think it was probably one of those more of the, like the wee half laugh. It was like a micro expression. I had no conscious awareness that I'd done it. And I went, no. And he went, why are you laughing? And I'm like, I'm not laughing. And he went, are you pregnant? And I went, no. And in my head, I'm sitting thinking, so I didn't, for quickness, come out till I was 21. So I must have been about, 16, 17, something like that. And he was like, why are you lying? And I went, I'm not lying. And he was like, we can't put you in this machine until you confirm to me you're not pregnant. And I'm like, how many times do I need to tell you I'm not pregnant? And it got to the point where I felt really uncomfortable. But it was fiercely defending my potential unborn baby, and I'm like, I've just told you I'm not. And I get they probably have laws to protect, but it was like in that instance, I didn't feel seen as Victoria the patient. It was, we need to make sure there's not someone else in there. And I'm like, we're literally here because my knees ache. Like, what the hell, man?
I hate that so much.
And when you look at, fair enough, like as a teenager with like troublesome knees, like my sister was in agony, and they asked her countless times if she was pregnant. And she obviously, being a kidney issue, had peed and had blood samples taken every 2 seconds. So like, I'm sure they've got enough of her pee. Sorry, Lauren. To run a pregnancy test. I think she had to do one on arrival anyway,
Jesus
which
Christ.
came back negative. But it was all about like, are you? We don't want to harm the baby.
Yeah.
And do you know what I find rich in this full circle moment? The baby's nice and protected, the hypothetical baby. But see when it's born and grows up trans, all those rights are get straight off.
Yeah.
There's a major disconnect in the whole system.
Yeah.
Like that baby has rights up until it wants to use the toilet, it feels suits it best. Which I just think is messed up.
Absolutely. No human life is worth more than another's. And that's that.
I remember my mum used to teach me and my sister about, in the early days of our lives, it was about racism, but I think it goes for everything. My mum was like, people are like Smarties. They might look different on the outside, but see inside, we're all just chocolate. All Smarties taste the same. And see, before you start splitting hairs about, going, no, they've got different in it. Shush, chocolate sweeties. That's it. And like, why do people feel the need to look at other people different to them and go, I'm better than you and I will make your life hell to prove it?
I will say, like, one thing about me, like, yes, it's maybe put me in some dangerous situations in the past, but like, I will always seek to understand someone else's experience if it's different from my own. Like, I like to understand how other people operate. I like to understand where other people's beliefs come from, like how they've come to be that way, or like I'll listen to other people's stories because like I understand that like my experience isn't the universal experience.
I quite like that about you. You have this like thirst for understanding.
Yeah.
Like you take things and you're like, how does this person or this thing tick, and why does it? You have this lovely, curious mindset about everything. It's the kind of, oh, how does this work? And that open-mindedness is why, like, so many people are like stepping forward to want to like work with you, things like that. Whereas if you get people so say for example, you could have a coach and they're like, I don't understand this at all. I can't help you. When all it really takes is just sit and listen to someone for 2 seconds.
Literally.
Like, they'll tell you what makes them tick.
Yeah.
And it's not that difficult. But a lot of people, I think it's such a shame if someone or something is different from what they normally experience. Instead of approaching it with curiosity, they approach it with kind of fear and hatred. And I get that, like, obviously that might be inbuilt survival instincts from like, the caveman age, but seeing as it's a saber-toothed tiger.
I think it's sad because we're seeing that showing up in a lot of ways in politics just now, and it's not just with this like scapegoating of trans people, but it's also ethnic minorities like refugees, immigrants. Again, like I'm seeing a lot of hatred on Facebook at the moment. A lot of like finger pointing and people going on about like immigrants coming over in boats and they're taking up space in our hotels, but also apparently they're taking up all the social housing, and they're doctors and lawyers, but also they're on benefits and they need to get a job.
Like, which is it? see all these unemployed folk that are operating, and what's it like? And we were talking about it in the cat the other day, and it was like, if British people go anywhere else, we expect to be treated with the utmost respect. But if anyone comes over here, then we're like, whoa, 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 what are you doing here?
I'll never forget, like, when we were kind of when we were learning about like immigration and like the moral panics and stuff around it, in one of my first years of studying sociology, and I remember just finding it so ridiculous when my lecturer highlighted that like British people, when they move abroad, will call themselves expats. They won't call themselves immigrants, and yet if anyone migrates to the UK, they're suddenly an immigrant. They can't call themselves an expat. It's literally like white supremacy at its finest.
Yeah, it still exists in this day and age. Like, I feel like I've stopped short of saying it, but like we've kind of touched on it a few times when we've been talking about it. Like, denying people access to spaces because they belong to a certain characteristic. You don't need to look too far back in history to see the last time that really happened and the devastating consequences that had.
A lot of people have definitely been like drawing patterns between what's happening in the world right now and World War II, and it's really quite frightening when you start looking at all the parallels.
The thing that gets me is, like, I remember from school, from learning about it in school, I think it started small things like you can't come in certain shops. This is the same in modern day, only you can't come in certain toilets.
Yeah. And now
sports teams.
I feel like we should talk about that a little bit as well, because I feel like that's quite relevant to what we do at the moment, and could potentially impact, well, people within our community.
Which I think, because we've spoke about it quite a lot, about how it's important at the minute to make sure that our resources, or resources in general, are very much advertised going, you are welcome here. In fact, it's encouraged. So I think, I can't remember who did it first, England or Scotland, but in terms of women's football, I think they were within a day of each other. If you are a trans woman, you're no longer able to play for a women's team. And I think, I read somewhere, I think it might be England, that's only 30 women that they could find. So 30 trans women have clearly posed such a threat to the entire world of women's sports that they've been banned. But apparently these women have actually been playing for a prolonged period of time with no instances, but overnight they're no longer allowed to play. And then I think a couple of days after that, England women's cricket followed suit as well. So if you're using the argument of injury, and I hate to, what's the word I'm looking for? Marginalised cricket anyway, like it's not a sport I know much about, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's not overtly physical in comparison to rugby. But they're now banned. And I'm like, these are only two sports. In the UK, it's currently illegal as well to, if you're a trans woman, play for a women's rugby team, but laws are different in Europe. If you're a trans man, you can still play for a gents rugby team, but it doesn't work the other way about.
Right.
This was before they passed that law. That had always been the case. I do know of like exclusively trans teams that exist, and then you get all the debate, well, why isn't there, like, for example, things like a trans league? And I'm like, does there need to be though? The only people that are causing issues here are this minority of people that seem to think they can scapegoat.
Yeah.
And the thing that always gets me is a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's just football, it's just cricket, it's just rugby. And I'm like, sports is so true to life in a lot of ways. Like, not a lot of people realise. If you look at the impact football has in Scotland, and we're floating under the guise that obviously this is the era of women's sports with like the Lionesses and things like that, and it's like it's disguising this very ugly divide bubbling under the surface, that it's like women's sports is growing, but that doesn't include our trans sisters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but if it doesn't include them, then our sport isn't growing at all. It's gone backwards. And we'll just chase the crumbs that we're throwing, going, oh, we're on the TV now.
I think like it's tough when the fitness realm already can be such an intimidating place for people that fall out with like the gender binary, or like out side of like the kind of like cis het, like
Mhm.
I feel like the gym environment can already be quite a daunting place.
Yeah.
Well, not just the gym environment, but like fitness in
In
general, sports, the gym.
Mm-hmm. Like there's we were talking about it earlier before we put the microphones on. Like there's 1,000,001 ways to improve fitness,
Mm-hmm.
and when there's so much variety out there, there's on the one hand there's so much, but on the other hand there's very little choice.
Yeah.
Because regardless what you pick, so even like obviously your sport bodybuilding, like if you're entering categories, it's gents and ladies. If you play for a team, gents or ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves quite a lot of people kind of excluded by default, right down to the change rooms you go into.
I suppose that's the thing that we've kind of like touched on as well. Like, if there was like one thing, like one ultimate goal that I could have in my career, like at this point in time, I think it would be to like create some sort of like bodybuilding federation that was like trans inclusive. Because as far as I'm aware, like that's not a thing right now. There are very sort of like rigid rules around that kind of thing. And as I was saying kind of earlier on, like there was a lot of shit that kicked off just because a woman who was quite masculine presenting, because people decided that she was trans.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really cool to see some sort of like inclusive bodybuilding federation, where trans people were accepted, because I feel like bodybuilding shouldn't just be for cisgender people. I think there's like so much enjoyment to come out of bodybuilding, and the things that it teaches you about yourself, about your resilience, about like self-improvement and discipline and stuff. And yeah, I've had conversations with clients who are kind of more in the way of like gender fluid, like gender queer, who like the idea of bodybuilding but don't like the idea of this like super like kind of over exaggerated gender performance. And I think it would be really cool to see something like that in the future.
I'd go see that. I'd get right behind that.
Watch this space.
I'm shook that
if anyone wants to hop on board and has any ideas, then let's get this.
Get in touch.
Get this going.
Get in touch. Us. Get us off the ground. If anyone knows of anything similar to that does exist, please let us know, because we'd love to hear more about it. But imagine.
But I remember having a conversation with my therapist back in January, end of January, about like gender identity and stuff, and kind of where I'm currently at in my gender identity journey, which I'm still figuring it out at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I remember like one of the first things she said to me was like, how do you feel about that when it comes to bodybuilding? Because it is like there's only men's categories and women's categories, and I kind of feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, for all intents and purposes, like I'd obviously like be fine with competing as a woman, because like figure is the category that I enjoy. It's like the physique that I aiming for. Mm-hmm. But I think like it definitely, in hindsight, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it. And as I say, like I think it would be cool to create some sort of inclusive bodybuilding federation at some point.
Imagine you being a founder or something like that. I would cry.
One day.
I would cry and be like about that wee car in the meme with the thumb thing.
Never say never.
I can see it. I can see it for you. I think it would be really cool.
But anyway, enough about me.
Enough about me.
I think one thing that would be really helpful to kind of like have a talk about as well, because I know this is a conversation that's been coming up with a lot of my clients as well, like clients who are a part of the LGBTQ community, is just like how to support people around this time, whether you are affected by the Supreme Court ruling yourself, or whether you are an ally, whether you've got people in your close circle who are affected by everything that's going on at the moment. One of the biggest things that I would say that you can do if you are directly affected by it is leaning into community. So what does community look like to you, and how can you start kind of participating in that more? So I know that for myself and for you, it's been about kind of like going to protests, going to rallies, just checking in on other queer friends, like meeting up with people, attending socials, and like not even socials that are specifically directed towards what's going on at the moment, but just kind of participating in queer events.
Mm-hmm. The one thing, and I know it probably be hard for some people at the minute, is please leave the house.
Yes. Because that's something I've struggled with for the last few weeks, especially kind of considering that I cut the majority of my hair off like a couple of weeks before this whole shebang went off. So I've had a lot of anxiety around being in single sex spaces, because I do have that fear, like especially knowing that it's happened to you, like it's happened to other people who have like reached out to me about what's been going on. So I don't like, I'm not naive to the fact that it could very well happen to me at some point where I could be called out or like shouted abuse at or whatever for using like women's changing rooms or toilets because I have short hair and because I'm a bit more masculine presenting.
Like I've known it's been something you've been struggling with. The other day, I mean, in terms of me, like if I'm talking about my own perspective, like the other day we were in the gym and I was doing my kneehab and you were away lifting a biblical amount of plates on the leg press. Like I was looking at you across the gym and I'm like, I fancy you. And like if the like, it would make me pig sick to think of a circumstance or a situation where someone approached you in that way, being like, "What are you doing in here?" I'm like, no. But as scary as it is, there are still places out there where we're all welcome, even if that means, because we had a chat about it, like if leaving the house is something you're fearful of, like go to a queer space.
Yep.
And build your confidence up from there, like, because I guarantee you'll be welcome in a queer space, and like just keep it small and do things like if you're maybe worried about going to shops or something like that, like ask a friend to come with you just so you're not on your own, but please leave the house. Even if it's to walk to the end of your street, because this will do way more damage to your health imprisoning yourself because of the small opinions of this small group of people. Like, your life's still valid, your life's still beautiful. Like, there are people out there who are like you, there are friends you've not yet met, like, there are experiences you deserve to have. Like, please leave the house.
100%. And then I think as for, like, if you're an ally and you're wondering what you could be doing to support trans people within your life and whatnot at the moment, first thing, like, write to your local MP, MSP, about the situation, your thoughts on it, how it's affecting the people around you. I believe there is also a template for writing to the EHRC as well about the interim guidance that they have released. So that's another thing that you can do as well. What I will do is I will try and find some links to these resources and pop them in the bio of this episode, just in case you have trouble finding them. Attend events as well, like if there's any fundraisers going on within your community. We are going to one on the 22nd of May at Stereo on Renfield Street in Glasgow. So
the cabaret.
So if you want to come along to something like that, then yeah, there'll be things going on as well.
Don't sit quietly. The one thing that I'm so keen on is that people get to live their life to the fullest. Your health's important. I think as a pair of coaches and trainers, you don't have much if you don't have your health. So do things for you that, like, don't hide yourself away, don't neglect yourself.
If you have the means to as well, like, please do speak out. I mean, I feel like sharing posts, like, yes, it is something, but if there's more that you can do, if you can use your platform in more productive ways, then please do. And I completely understand the fear about it as well. just off the back of a post that I shared the other day, I've already lost like a good 50 followers, but I feel like people that were engaging in my content before or following my content before that were transphobes, like, we don't fucking want them anyway. So I've just been trying to remind myself, like, yes, it hurts the ego, but I think it is really, really important to speak out about things that you care about and speak up for people who maybe don't have the means to speak up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've kind of covered everything for now. I mean, I could certainly rant for longer, but we will hopefully make the next episode a bit more of a positive one.
A jolly one.
Yeah.
As Lucy said, like, if you want to get involved or find out a wee bit more, we'll include the links. So you can tap on them.
As always, if there's anything that you want to reach out about at all, like if you just need someone to chat to about what's going on, or if you'd like a little bit more kind of guidance on things you can do to support yourself during this time, then please do reach out to us on Instagram. My Instagram handle is tailormadetraining.pt.
And I am VB the PT.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next one.
See you soon.